Bloopers!
Yes, bloopers. All right, let's start again. Hello!
Yeah. Popcorn!
Popcorn! Today we had a lot of topics before this rant, and now we're gonna have a popcorn-worthy rant, hopefully.
Yes, that's why you see that whole wad of popcorn bucket there.
And what are we gonna talk about today?
Hot topic, product and sales.
Sales. Yes. Sales is something that I have had the pleasure of talking about a lot lately, and I know that Maria has worked with salespeople very closely.
Yeah.
Due to her past, so we thought that we'd speak about how sales and product work together, and how they shouldn't work together, and maybe how they should work together, and maybe also how real life looks like. Let's see where this goes, because as always, this is unscripted.
Yep.
We turn up with coffee, this time popcorn.
Yes. And if this is your first time here, we are Maria and
Anna-Liisa.
And we talk about product topics, and today is our 4th episode. So let's get right into it.
Let's get to it. So, sales. What do you see sales and product relationships as, or what's your experience?
Yeah. So funnily enough, I have a positive experience for the most part. Not all of it has been positive, but for the most part, probably due to the fact that I worked for a long time at a company which software was aimed at helping salespeople. And before that, I think I had the conception of sales that a lot of people have, which is just a bunch of annoying people that are trying to push something down your throat. So I would walk down shopping mall and actively avoid anyone that was approaching me to sell me anything, even if it was a product that I liked. I just didn't want to do the whole thing. Dislike cold marketing, sales and calls, and all of it. But thanks to this experience where we were exposed to a different perspective on sales, I understood that actually salespeople doing that are bad salespeople, and good salespeople are doing first a job to understand the needs of the potential client. And if there's no matching needs, they will not push anything down your throat, or anyone else's for that matter. And so my perspective changed. I still see there's a lot of terrible salespeople out there, but if the job is done well, then you will not feel that. And they can actually have a lot in common with us in product, in that they need to understand the end potential customer need to be able to see if there's a match with the service of the product that they're selling, in the same way that we as product people need to understand the need to see if we can solve that problem. So I've had the pleasure of working with salespeople that understand that. They understand the role of product. They will not try and sell something that doesn't exist and then kind of put you in a corner where you now have to say no to something that was promised to someone for a lot of money, or figure out how to build it in parallel to whatever else you think is the right thing to build to solve customer problems. But I've also worked with the other type too, and that can be exhausting.
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit of a touchy topic on many angles. I don't know if I told you, probably I did, that my background way back like 12 years ago, it was actually communications and marketing.
Yeah.
And I lasted very little, especially in the advertising agency, because I felt exactly what you described about these like the bad salespeople. Only I felt like I was a bad marketing person, because often enough the things that I was selling, because marketing is meant to bring more clients. So the end goal, even though you may do branding or whatnot in there, the end goal is to sell whatever service or product you're selling. And I felt like I was lying to people, because they didn't need this, and I was finding angles to word it like in a way that the target groups do need it, while I wasn't actually sure. And I got out of the business. Actually, I figured out that I have to be like somewhere else in the hierarchy or the food chain. I have to be the one to come up with the products, so that the products are actually something that solve a problem. And now, like, yeah.
Would you say that your bad experience trying to push something that you felt you were lying about was then what got you into, let's go into the world where I can build things that people actually want?
Yes.
Okay.
It was a conscious decision.
Okay.
I remember having that train of thought one evening, and I thought that this cannot go on. I have to find somewhere or some way to come up with these products. So of course, then I didn't know that it would be tech or digital products. I was more thinking like physical products maybe, and I was thinking of going to study maybe product design, as in not digital design but the design of physical products.
Yeah.
But by chance I happened to tech, and that was actually, that fit like a glove. However, it took me a very long time to realize that it's not about the marketing or the sales, because when I became a product manager, I also viewed sales and marketing in a way, slightly from a soap on top of a soapbox, that product is better because product solves some problems, and you're just wrapping it into nice paper. It's not true. I have now, only like 10 years later, come to realize, after working with many companies, like as an employee or now as a product mentor, that it's not about the department or the area. It's about the strategy or the value and the expectations that the company strategy sets on it. Sorry, we have a
hello.
No
popcorn for you.
Sets on these departments. Like, is it that the sales team, sorry,
it's okay,
is meant to understand?
It's okay. It's okay.
Cats, they like people who are allergic or who don't pay attention.
Let it be. Okay, it won't happen anything. Yeah, I'm allergic. It's not that I don't like cats. I want to pet it badly, but that's why I'm keeping this distance. All right.
Anyway, that it's like whether the sales strategy is to understand the problems of the target group and what the target group is and where our product might be useful, or it's to sell to whoever. It's about strategy.
And you're saying something from the very beginning when you started sharing how your experience in marketing was a negative one, and after so many years you now understand. You say strategy, but it's interesting that what I see, and that probably fits into strategy, which is why strategy is such a mystery. One of these days we should do a rant on strategy. Is the fact that there's the plus and the downside of compartmentalizing and specializing in things. For me, it was very funny to see that you were saying marketing, and immediately you started mixing sales with this. We started the topic on sales, then you brought up marketing, and then we always tend to do that. We bring up marketing and sales as a one thing, and there's that product separation. And then yes, we make the mistake of, product is better because we build the thing, but then sales and marketing would say, well, without us, how do people even get to the thing?
Yes.
And the truth is that if you break the dividing lines of where one function starts and the other, where one ends and the other begins, then it's fundamentally about a shared understanding of who is our customer,
Yes.
what do they need,
yes,
how do we reach them, right? And not literally just as in like, where can they hear about us or read about us, but how do we reach them emotionally and psychologically, which is where good marketing is. And then when it comes to executing, because there's so much work, we can divide and compartmentalize.
Yes.
We're all in the same boat. We all want to get to satisfy customer needs. Now, how do we each play a different role in making that happen? Where does marketing start and end? And it's kind of like a relay game a little bit. Perhaps maybe there's a little fuzziness in, there's not a clear cut line of you start here and I end here. Some of the things we have to do together.
Yes.
But I think because the fundamental understanding of We're all here to understand customer needs and find ways to satisfy them. But instead, we see this is what product does, this is what marketing does, this is what sales does. We don't get to that shared understanding, and then we have those different ways of executing.
Yes, that's like ideally that is how it should be. However, what I've noticed is also, and this is through like you learn through suffering. Um, in a lot of companies, because of this kind of competition that I also described. Like it's from the product side. Product looks at sales and marketing in a certain way in a lot of companies, and it shouldn't be like that. I think Pipedrive, where you also worked, is one of the few that I've heard where there is, because Pipedrive is by salespeople for salespeople in a lot of ways. Where there's like some sort of cohesion, but often enough it's like some odd competition, because sales and marketing, yes, say that what are you going to be without us, and product is like, well, I'm making a product that is so good that it's going to sell itself. Even like product let's sales, it's maybe we'll get into that. It's a competition. It's not that we have a common goal, and it's not that when the product is created, developed based on an actual customer need, that the sales or marketing teams are just as interested in that customer need or pain. A former colleague of mine actually described, or former, current, because she's also freelancing, described how in her best experience, the sales team actually came back from the field and said that, listen, like we know that the product doesn't do this. Is it okay that we told the client that they can use it in an alternative way? It would solve the problem, this functionality. It's not specifically for that, but it solves it. So in a good relationship, I imagine that, and in my last like kind of trial and error, it does work like this, that it's a partnership, that yes, product defines the value, but then sales and marketing redefine the value, like keep exploring it and keep finding new ways, and it should be like a symbiotic
because
relationship.
they're having that conversation with clients, and that's the part where we in product need to respect that they are in the front lines. I think one of the things that creates the conflict out of the bat is the fact that in many places, salespeople are rewarded by the deals they close, and the long-term relationship with the client doesn't matter. But in product, we want a longer-term relationship. So that fits into what you were saying before of the strategy. If there's no alignment at the leadership levels of how are we going to reward salespeople so that they bring in customers in a way that is in synchrony with what we're looking for in the product, then it's going to work or not work based on how clearly that well defined. So let's assume it is clearly defined, then we go into that execution. Yes, I've experienced that kind of collaboration. You respect the fact that these people are talking to potential customers every single day, and that the objections that they're getting, the things that get customers sort of light up, the way they react to pricing is information for you to build into, to factor into your product decisions. And so if you have that kind of partnership, that's actually what we would do at Pipedrive back in the day. I don't know nowadays, but I'd sit. I could ask my sales colleagues, "Can I sit with you in these calls if we're trying to understand a problem?" And yes, they were very happy to let us sit in the call. But not only that, they were very happy to have a conversation with us. What is it that you're trying to learn for the product? What are you listening? The customers are saying, like, so we'd have that conversation, and then we'd sit in the front lines, so to say, to get that direct feedback. You'd observe, you see what's happening. But, and I think this is where the part of the conflict, a second reason for conflict exists. So that first one is you mentioned it in terms of strategy. I mentioned it how it's reflected, for example, in the way salespeople are compensated. And then the third thing I would point out here is when you oh, I lost that thought. Let's take a step back. So you're listening to what sales. Oh yes, here was my point. the another source of conflict is the expectation that everything that you hear in sales is the one thing that you're going to take into deciding how you build your product, but the reality is that that is just one source of information, and there are many more sources of information, because sales is about who you bring through the door.
Yes.
But then you also have retention challenges, and the retention challenges are different, and you get to listen to them through product usage, through customer success, through customer support. And there actually may be contradictions in there when people get through the door, which is that sales is closed, and they start using the product on a regular basis, and then another so that conflict comes when sales doesn't understand that the decisions we're making are based not only on the input we're getting from there and from the conversations they're having with those potential clients, but from all these other sources, plus even more, right? External data, leadership data, and stuff. So I think those are places that need to be worked if we want to work in a partnership with sales, right?
Yeah, agreed. And I even like I nowadays I embrace the cooperation. Like for example, I ask sales to find the best possible customers in a B2B setting for the pilot that we are trying to run, or bring me insights actually from the field, or we redo the roadmap sometimes based on what the if the sales can bring 3 clients that want to commit to a certain I don't know, module or whatever is coming. If we have like pre-commitments from the field, that's the best possible validation that we could have. And sales like maybe then also feels like they are more in this game with us, rather than it creating this very classic, I guess, I don't know, it's probably not a joke, it's actually something that's real, that hits too close to home, where sales sells something that doesn't exist, and then product gets pressured into it.
And that's exactly what I wanted to ask you. Like, how do you differentiate between pre-commitments that give us the confidence that this is the better direction to go into, compared to promises of something that hasn't even been discussed? Like,
I believe that you have to have, or at least I go about it like this. You have, like you said, multiple points of data, multiple sources where you get it from. Analytics, I don't know, competitor research, customer research, interviews, quantitative, qualitative data, also say, stuff that comes from sales, customer support. Like you have many points of data. You create vision of what you want to achieve in a certain amount of time. Let's say a year. I don't believe in planning like very precisely for a year, but let's say we have an understanding of what we want to achieve this year. And now when we go to the field and we start validating like in order to prioritize these things, and it turns out that something that we planned toward the end of the year rather than the beginning of the year actually is creating or showing much more traction, that clients are committing to it, like with pre-agreements or whatnot. We might prioritize it actually, and we might swap around what is going on the roadmap, because we have several customers already showing interest and willing to commit with their money, because just saying yes I want it, people want to give you the right answer. So in the end, when it comes to paying the invoice, it might turn out that they don't want it actually that much. But if they're willing to commit like this already, that we have a pre-agreement, and they maybe commit financially also, then this is validation for me. So I might redo redo the roadmap based on that. How is it different, you asked? It's we have our vision of what we want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and we go out to find validation rather than we get this one client asking for it. And
Yeah.
sometimes one client asks for it, and product might be like, oh yeah, I actually heard this thing, this narrative, this and this place,
Mm-hmm.
and like customer support also like brings it out and whatnot. Let's go out and see if we can find traction to that
Mm-hmm.
problem, and then bring it into the roadmap. But it should not be a forced kind of thing.
Exactly. So it's what I'm hearing you say, which is why I don't like formulaic recommendations, is not that it will always be that product has a clear vision, and now we're going to see how that is sensed in the real world through sales conversations or whatnot. It is not either that we have to hear what people are asking for in sales and go build that. In my sort of tilt into one direction or the other, depending on how much clarity there is on that, depending on what goal is the company trying to achieve at one point. I think it's a very different situation to be in when, I don't know, you had a very successful product, you're selling, you have good retention, and now this starts dropping. The market has changed, your sales are dropping, people are not buying this anymore. You don't have a clear vision. What do? You listen to the market. So in this, at this point in a reality like that, maybe the sales conversations start to become more relevant than whatever vision or strategy there is in product, because there isn't one in this scenario.
Yes.
And the reality is changing. Of course, we could go into the conversation of, why were you caught out of guard? How come you didn't realize this before? Why did we wait for the numbers to drop to this level? But not to play the blaming game, then you'd accept that the best source of information I can have right now is understanding customer objections. How have customer needs changed that we didn't realize? Let's listen to them directly from the field. But in another situation where you have evidence from the market that this is the main problem to solve, you have different ideas and solutions that you're exploring with, testing them in the real world, and then finding the customers that are ready to commit to it just because you've already validated at a different level that that's what they need, and you just want to see the willingness to pay, which is why you say that commitment, then the story is different. So it's never sales always right, products always right. Like the partnership has to be dynamic and open to the discussion of understanding where are we going, in which direction are we going as a company, what data do we have right now to validate that, and then what do we hold, what each of us hold, how can we contribute to the table with data, with ideas, right?
Agreed,
Which is the partnership bit. But it is very common that I'm listening to customers every day, I know what they want, and I told them, and you should be building this.
Yeah. I'm paranoid. I'm just checking whether the camera is still on, exactly. And I think that when we don't have this partnership, or where I think the key is both sides need to feel listened to.
Yes.
Because if you cut off the sales team as a, like in product, saying that, we decide and you can't tell us what to do, then you actually might be missing opportunities, because you cut off also one data source that you have.
Exactly.
Like it's a gold mine.
Exactly. Actually, and this reminded me again, I think I've shared this experience before, but okay, I've had good sales relationships, but I've also had terrible ones. And when I look back into it, it's because I was making that mistake. I was frustrated. First, it was a very difficult situation. I had too many salespeople in too many different markets, and there was no clear vision that would help me prioritize them. So I had to find a way to prioritize them at the speed at also of not letting deals drop and feel the responsibility, right? Because of saying no blindly. And so I was so frustrated that I started shutting down salespeople. And I literally would just say no and not have the conversation, because some of them were relentless. Like they wanted to have a chat after every single customer conversation about this one thing, and it should be easy for you to build it, right? Because it's very straightforward. It's just this thing here in the filter, and you're like, I've explained you before, Paul. I have explained you before. It's not that easy. I mean, we can sit with it. And so I was not in a place where I could sit and explain, this is the way it works. I am listening, I'm understanding, but it's not straightforward because of that. So I decided to shift my attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of shutting them down and being super frustrated by it, I was like, okay, let's have that call. Let's listen to
Mm-hmm.
what you have to say, and now let's look at it um, from the bigger perspective of what are we trying to achieve here, which was a very difficult
Mm-hmm.
conversation to have because
Mm-hmm.
again there was no clear vision or goals.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I eventually kind of started giving more information to this person of how we were making product decisions, how we were prioritizing, how that one topic that they kept on bringing was just one amidst tons of other things
Mm-hmm.
that I had to filter so that we could use the resources better. Because as
Mm-hmm.
usual, there's less people to do the job than ideas coming through.
Mm-hmm.
And the shift in that person's sort of communication with me,
Mm-hmm.
luckily this was actually a nice person, very pushy but nice,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, oh my god, Maria, this is the best conversation I've had with you,
Mm-hmm.
because I did one thing. I stopped saying just no blindly, and I
Mm-hmm.
started explaining more of the process. So I brought
Mm-hmm.
him on board. Like, let
Mm-hmm.
me show you how it
Mm-hmm.
is. I'm not being a bitch just because I want to be a bitch. Let me
Mm-hmm.
show you how it works, and maybe we can still find a way to make that customer
Mm-hmm.
happy, but without committing these resources. Like, I'm here to help you close more deals as
Yeah.
well. Like, we all want more deals
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
to 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 get through, and that shifted the conversation
Mm-hmm.
so much. But I had to um, bring down my guard, because I think
Mm-hmm.
we might get to
Mm-hmm.
that frustration of, you have no idea how many decisions I'm making, how much information, and you just think your thing is more important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and it's like, it's not his fault. Let's try again, right?
This brings me to another hot topic. What I've heard a lot from sales teams is that we are waiting for some sort of development to finish so we could sell.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of looking and redefining. I told you, she's the devil. There's a cat in a cupboard. You can't see it or hear it, but there is. Uh, anyway, once you are finished, then we are able to sell.
Yeah.
Rather than, and I find this maybe more common with new people that have joined the sales team or the marketing team, who have, and if it's a complicated product, it's very difficult to learn to get to know the functionality that are of value already, and finding this problem solution fit for customers with existing functionality, or redefining the value of it, or finding, like, learning from customers however else they are currently using this product. So you could already sell what we have.
Yes.
Because every single, at least I believe that every single thing that we have built should actually be marketed. Like, it can be sold, it can be redefined in value. Like, for example, like all of these tools like Kubernetes and whatnot that Google built for themselves and ended up selling, like, oh, or did it go into the coffee?
No, almost.
That ended up they brought it to the end customer. It doesn't matter why you have it, but the fact that you have it and somebody has a need for it. You don't need to wait for the next shiny thing to be ready.
And I think, just to give people some credit, it could be because what exists is really shitty and nobody wants to buy it, and they're trying their best, but it's not working. But it could also be that they're just not good salespeople. And the example that you mentioned of your colleague and the workarounds, I saw a lot of that. I saw a lot of that, salespeople offering, and wonderful technical customer support people offering workarounds that I wouldn't have thought of to help the customer satisfy a need. Sometimes knowing that we would never build a solution for that workaround because that wasn't the purpose of the product, but you knew that 80% of the customers were happy, and you had a workaround for this 10% for this thing, for this 5% for this other thing. But they saw what was there. Of course, it's a very different story when, in this case, the product was built for salespeople, and this is salespeople selling a product. So they understand deeply what a salesperson needs. Again, assuming they have the same philosophy, because just as there are many product philosophies out there, you'll also find that people have different understanding and expectations and approaches to selling. But going back to the point, is yes, I think you shouldn't wait for X or Y to be ready because we already have something. So somebody needs it. Why aren't you selling what we have? Is it really that bad? Or is it that your sales skills are actually not up to the game and to the challenge? And so I think they shouldn't be sitting in their on the laurels, is it,
Mm-hmm.
and just waiting for something to be
Mm-hmm.
done. It's an ongoing thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like things are never going to be ready.
Mm-hmm.
The world is going to be changing. Even if you have
Mm-hmm.
the product that you were dreaming of, once
Mm-hmm.
it's ready, the market needs change, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's always dynamic. So you sell
Mm-hmm.
what you have, you build with what you can, and
Mm-hmm.
we're all making trade-offs, but we
Mm-hmm.
cannot imagine if we're like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're not delivering value until we have this prototype tested and this and
Mm-hmm.
that. No, you still need to have things through the pipeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're getting
Yeah.
pushed that the resources and the value and the whatever.
Yeah.
So we all have to make trade-offs, and that's again where a fair partnership
Mm-hmm.
in place would mean, yeah, sales doing what they can do,
Yeah.
products doing what they can do. We all know
Mm-hmm.
what is our main goal here, what we're going
Yeah.
after, and we just support each other.
It's like very simply, the product is in charge of and responsible for creating the value,
Yeah.
and then the sales and marketing are meant to bring that value to the market and redefine it if needed, bring it back, let's talk about it. Products always, or at least I am always interested to learn how the market responds to it and whether there are alternative ways of thinking about it. Let's go, like, but stop competing, stop like finding excuses why one or the other is or isn't.
Yeah.
But this brings me to another topic that I've learned. So I've been doing these like product transformations, right? And when I see the product teams are working already like very value focused and goal oriented,
Yeah.
then this starts bringing out like, I don't know, bumps in the road from the rest of the company, because
Why?
um, this is how I learned the hard way. It doesn't matter how good your product is,
Yes.
unless your sales and marketing are on board.
Know it.
You
Yes.
are nobody.
Yes. Yes.
And
exactly.
and then how do you deal with it? Actually, you then figure out that your sales team is not customer minded.
Yes.
They don't care about what the customer's problems are. They just want their sales percentage, whatever that was called, commission.
Their quota.
Yes, they want their quota. They want the commissions that they get per, and they will sell to whoever. They don't think about whether there's whether they are solving a problem when they're selling it to the customer. And then as a product leader, I find myself thinking often, like, but what do I do in this situation?
Yeah.
Like, I escalate, but what else can I do? What can I do? Like,
I'm thinking it's a very tough question
Yes.
because I think there's this huge misconception out there that product-led work, product-led companies don't need sales and marketing. No, wrong. You still need them. But as you just clearly said, there's no point if you have a great product and you don't know how to place it out there. And that is the role of the functions of marketing and sales. But it's not that you build the product and then you put it in front of them and it's like, go figure it out. Before you build solutions, while you are understanding customer needs, at that level already the collaboration begins. Here's what we believe, here's what we're trying, we feed each other information. When we're making progress, you engage them. You engage them in testing sessions. You engage them in exploring ways to describe the value proposition. This is how we describe it. How would you do it? For example, the marketing fault with your worth-smithing skills, right? You actually work with them along the way. We tend to talk a lot when we're building product. We tend to talk a lot about working with design and engineering, but the truth is we have to engage marketing and sales as early as we engage engineering and design, because if we don't have a way to talk about and place this product in a way that will reach the customers, we're doomed. So what can we do when there is a disconnect? That's your question.
I guess so, yeah. And how do you know whether it can be repaired and whether these people are competent? Or, like, I wouldn't even say competent, but whether this can turn into a product centric relationship, or
Mm-hmm.
they're just not interested in doing it that way.
Or customer
Yes.
centric, because in the end
Mm-hmm.
it's not the product that matters, it's the
Mm-hmm.
product that solves a customer problem
Yeah,
that
I
they want
meant
to pay
customer centric.
for. And then we all want to, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I thought
Mm-hmm.
you meant product.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, if you already have a product built, I think it's a harder problem to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Not impossible. um you do have to get
Mm-hmm.
them on board on,
Mm-hmm.
okay, how do you think we can, again, sit with them
Mm-hmm.
to define together the sales and marketing
Mm-hmm.
strategy. That, assuming you're allowed to get into that conversation,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're not allowed to get into that
Mm-hmm.
conversation, well, that's another story. But if your product is not done,
Mm-hmm.
then bring them into the discussions. Like, again, even if there's a
Mm-hmm.
disconnect, and this is already, getting us into the conversation of how do we make organizational change top bottom or
Mm-hmm.
bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think both approaches have their own merits.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're having uh, problems reaching leadership in how they define the way they compensate salespeople, so
Mm-hmm.
that is in line with understanding customer needs and linking to the product solution,
Mm-hmm.
then the best you can do is invite people into the room, like the
Mm-hmm.
actual sales and marketing people. Bring them into a design session, a testing session, where you have a show or recording of a customer to
Mm-hmm.
for them to see how this user is talking about the solution we're
Mm-hmm.
putting, and then compare, is this what you're listening to?
Mm-hmm.
Because in the end, one way to bring people together to
Mm-hmm.
collaborate is by putting them in front of what we both care about,
Mm-hmm.
an actual customer
Mm-hmm.
conversation. And so they're having their sales conversations, we're having ours in our
Mm-hmm.
testing. What happens if we bring them together?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one way that I would approach
Mm-hmm.
trying to make change and bridge
Mm-hmm.
that gap if there's issues of agreement at the leadership
Mm-hmm.
level. um, I don't know, that's one way that comes to mind.
Yeah, I think you saying bottom up, top down, I think actually that's the key to the approach. If you are a product manager and you're working with sales and marketing people who like you don't really feel in sync, then like first go to these people and address the situations. Say from an I point of view, like I don't feel like um, you are currently like on the same page as the product team in terms of like the maybe the customer value or the problems that we are solving.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's align.
Mm-hmm.
um, let's see where the overlap is. Let's see what the expectations are toward each other. Let's see like how we see this product, and how like what are the goals of each of the companies. Maybe we spot where the kind of the problem is. Maybe their goals are different, or maybe they have pressure from the top to do
Mm-hmm.
things in a different way. In that case, probably I would escalate if the sales team is incentivized in a way that directly takes you away from customer centricity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, sell to anybody, or
Mm-hmm.
if the agreed upon customer segment is, I don't know, financial institutions, and they are selling to specifically casinos because I don't know what.
It's
Yeah.
funny. It's funny that you bring this, because I
Mm-hmm.
was myself in a situation
Mm-hmm.
where there was a complete disconnect in how
Mm-hmm.
sales leadership measured sales,
Mm-hmm.
and how um, I wanted sales to
Mm-hmm.
be involved.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, I have to admit, I gave up on that
Mm-hmm.
relationship. Starting, it came from a very values based kind of disagreement already. First, this sales leader would get into execution
Mm-hmm.
meetings
Mm-hmm.
and would not let anyone talk. That to me is already an issue, because we're in a meeting where we're meant to move forward
Mm-hmm.
with operative action items, where everybody's going to contribute something from their perspective, sales, marketing, product. And if you only have one person with one perspective taking all the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
we were not getting to a collaborative point. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, nothing was happening except this person blurting out everything they thought was important to say.
Mm-hmm.
The language was bellic. I understand we use some words because we've been exposed to them for years. We don't even think about their meaning.
Mm-hmm.
but all the language this person used was bellic all the time. We have to, we'll can't even remember right now quote, but I remember once being very shocked by, we'll do whatever it takes to sell. Like, it was a very aggressive approach that didn't sound like it mattered if we closed the deal, what was going to happen later in that customer relationship. And I don't remember, now that I think about it, whether we had customer success role in that business, whereas in places where there's been healthier approach to that relationship between sales and product, we also have had the role of customer success or customer account managers who care about the long-term relationship with the user. And so because one hands over to the other, sales hands over to customer success, then this influences how sales executes their work beyond just closing that deal and getting the check. This wasn't the case. I don't know if that would have been a solution, like implementing customer success roles, but I gave up. I mean, and this is an example where I tried bottom up and kind of mitigated it a little bit, but I think that required changes that were outside my reach, and it had to do pretty much with sales, and all those people ended up getting fired. So
Just saying, right?
just saying. Yeah.
But I think it's like, and then now to the management teams, if you see a lot of finger pointing from both sides, that's probably your sign of now diving into like where this kind of chasm comes from. Like if it's like if the teams are not aligned, that's a problem in itself. That means that the sales probably is selling something else, and maybe there is not a very good communication. Somebody has to get involved and get the kind of common goals aligned, and everybody understanding what you are there to do and what kind of problem you are there to solve. And that something that I wouldn't go into, but like if you're a product company, your job is to standardize. Your job is to build a solution for many customers, not custom solutions. So it can be also, especially from the management point of view, very, very alluring to hear your customers say, okay, I will pay X amount for this custom solution.
And you said something very interesting there. If you're a product company, you're going to build for a majority, right, of addressable market, which means product led is not for every company, and that's okay. Some companies are there to build custom solutions, and in that case, do what you need to do, and that's all right. Not everything has to be product led. Not every company or business has to be product led, because it boils down to whether you're addressing um, um, a scalable problem, I suppose, repeatable, rather than a specific individual, right, custom.
Yeah, but then the pricing is also different, right? Because if you build a solution for one customer, then it also costs more, because in order to maintain it and build it, it's expensive to build software. That's why, especially like software as a service type of products, they can offer these 20 euros a month type of subscriptions, because many customers have the same problem. So therefore, the innovation and the new development and the platform is being paid by like distributed by amongst many customers, and that's why you are able to charge so little.
Yeah.
But if you decide then to take the custom development and be very certain that yes, they're going to pay you a lot of money as a lump sum, is it going to actually cover also the future when you're going to have to uphold this solution? It's a different kind of business model altogether. So if you're a product company and you want to do custom development, think about what this means in the long run. You may want to start a daughter company that provides these services, or if you're a service company wanting to move into product, realize what kind of like debt you are bringing with you. Because when you are building custom as a product company, it's going to be debt. technical debt in
Mm-hmm.
the future.
Mm-hmm.
If you are ready for it,
Mm-hmm.
by all means.
Mm-hmm. And this brings me to two questions that I think will be helpful for the audience and for us to. I like synthesizing and summarizing because we've covered a lot. Two questions that I would challenge us to answer. One is, what activities do we see in a company that has a healthy relationship between sales and product? What are typical activities? And a couple of them come to mind. Let's see if you have any to add. And then the second question I asked: what symptoms do we see that indicate this might not go anywhere, and it doesn't matter how open to collaboration product and sales are, if these things are not fixed, there's not, that alignment is not going to happen.
So what do you think?
So for the first question, so what activities I see, I remember a couple of them. These are very specific, but they are they were natural part of the process when I saw this relationship working. One of them that I mentioned before is sales is involved in the early stages of problem exploration. They understand why we need their input. They can participate in some of the sessions. They can afford to do that. Like there's value perceived in them engaging in that activity. And then you see little things like when we're close to launching, since they've been involved, it's not that something goes out and they hear about it last minute and now they have to change their sales script and no, there's a sales kind of enablement session. We prepare materials, we do demos with them. They are able to ask questions. There's a feedback loop between what we're about to release and what they're about to start selling, and it doesn't catch them by surprise because they've been a part of the process. So you have that they're engaged in the product development to a certain extent, of course not fully because they have their job to do, and there is sales enablement happening before the full launches happen. That's a couple of things that come to mind that I would observe.
I agree. Yeah. I think like again, I think maybe it falls under being involved, but that they truly feel listened to as a data point.
So they come proactively.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. They come proactively with information.
Yes, and they realize that this may mean something in terms of the roadmap, but it may not always mean that we're going to jump for it. But it will certainly be taken into consideration, serious consideration, not brushed off. Yeah.
Okay.
And what are the indications that tell us that it's not going to work unless something gets fixed?
I thought about this question when you were discussing the different business models, and then I was like, oh my god, I could have observed that before. I was trying the place where I kind of, this is not going to work, is because there was a lot of contradiction in the amount of resources we had to build things were not possible to be using custom solutions. Yet there was a tendency to prioritize the customer that was promising the 1 million euro contract. And the discourse around the product was that it was a product that was scalable and it was for masses. So there were contradictions in how day-to-day sales decisions were being made, which sometimes were, most times were as if it was a service company. That's how sales saw it. Sales, the amount of salespeople, that the whole approach to sales was as if it was a service-based company, but product was as if it was a product-led company. So it was a huge disconnect there. A huge disconnect.
And I think now that you say it like that, I think actually in a lot of companies it is like that.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not that somebody is a bad person because of this, but like it's just a mindset maybe. Because if you think about these like feature requests that you also described, like it only take you, I don't know, 1 day to do it, whatever, do it.
Yeah.
That's a service-based approach. Like if we make this button, not knowing whether this is relevant for everybody, we are creating custom solutions. We are not a service company. Like recently, I was creating training slides, and I quoted again Marty Kagan there. Let's not build what the customers want, but what they need. that situation. If you as a salesperson, you come with the conviction that the product should build that one button based on that one customer's feedback.
Yeah.
And your approach is, or like your reaction to no, because this and this is, I don't know, some sort of reactive, like pushback or like
frustration, maybe
frustration, taking it personally. It like it creates a very difficult situation for both sides, because you are one data point. Trust the fact that hopefully you can trust your product manager, because it's not always the fact that the person opposite of you as a salesperson is that person that takes into account all of the data points, but understand that you're one of the data points, and they are uniquely qualified because of all of the data that they are constantly consuming, to understand whether this is a standardizable, you get what I mean, standardizable thing, meaning whether a lot of customers need this or it's just one. Because if it's just one and they say
scalable would be
exactly
there, right?
It's scalable, if it's just one and they say yes to you, that means that they're not delivering to 99.9% of the other, the rest of the customer base.
Or 80-20 if we want to
Yes.
go Pareto. So
Yes.
if we look at a service company, it's okay that sales says, we've heard these 10 requests. We still need to prioritize them in product because there will always be more to do that can be implemented. But you take at face value that that's what we need to build. And it's now a matter of project management, right? Prioritize according to complexity, resource availability, value is going to bring. But you take at face value the request that sales is doing. In a product-led company, sales will say, these are the things we've been hearing in this past month, in this quarter. Then we'll go and process that data against all the other data points, and we'll come back and say, okay, from these things you guys are hearing, this aligns to the vision, this is connected to what we're hearing, customer success, this is what the market is doing, so we're gonna double down on these problems. And then it's like, okay, now they start getting involved. So it's a different conversation.
Yes.
Right? One is a lot more straightforward. There's still a prioritization, but most based on project management thinking. And in the other, it's like you don't take it at face value. You need to weight it against the other data points and then come back and involve sales in developing solutions for that idea or problem or request.
I think that's a beautiful clarification.
I just realized it actually while having this conversation with you. So many things that I had seen in an isolated way. I think I will go into whatever next company and I'll observe things very differently depending on what I see sales and product doing.
Yeah, same. And I almost want to like draw a line here with the question of like, how many of you have a service-led sales team and a product-led product team? Because I am now counting in my head, and it's actually a lot.
Actually, we never invite people to make comments. So if you got to this point, answer to that question. Is your company mainly a place where sales is sales-led and product is product-led? So there's that disconnect.
Or are you both like on the same side at least?
Both
like
are
sales-led or product-led.
Yeah. Where are you in those three?
Yes.
Fully sales-led, fully product-led, sales-led, product-led, disconnect.
Yes.
Yeah.
So on that, thank you for listening again. Yes. And thank you for all the good feedback that we have been getting. It's
more than we imagined.
More than we imagined, and not at all what we expected. So we're gonna keep doing this, and it's super awesome to have you and to have you.
Yeah, good to have caffeine and popcorn with you.
Yes. All right. See you next time.
Ciao.
Bye. We are go. Action!
Woo! Woo! Popcorn party.
Excuse me, the cat is eating the.
We have a cat behind the scenes eating the technical setup.
There you go. This one. Fuck. I think we start again. This is yours.
Hello. Hello.